Imagine 273 people falling from the sky. Their aircraft disintegrating at 31,000 feet, bodies and debris raining down on suburban Chicago. This nightmare almost became reality on May 25, 1979, when American Airlines Flight 191 lost its left engine during takeoff from O'Hare International Airport. But here's the untold story. This wasn't just a mechanical failure. It was the catastrophic result of a cost-cutting maintenance shortcut that every major airline in America was using. What you're about to discover is how 271 deaths exposed a terrifying secret that could have killed thousands more, and why the real scandal is that the warning signs had been screaming for months. Flight 191 was supposed to be routine, a regular afternoon service from Chicago to Los Angeles, packed with Memorial Day weekend travelers. The aircraft was a McDonnell Douglas DC-10, one of the workhorses of American aviation, with its distinctive three-engine design and wide body. The DC-10 had revolutionized air travel in the 1970s, making long-distance flights affordable for millions of Americans. By 1979, over 30 airlines worldwide operated nearly 400 of these jets, carrying passengers to every corner of the globe. But the DC-10 had a reputation. Pilots called it Death Cruiser 10 behind closed doors. In its first decade of service, the aircraft had been involved in several high-profile accidents, each exposing design vulnerabilities that McDonnell Douglas insisted were within acceptable limits. The cargo door that could blow out in flight, the hydraulic systems that ran too close together, the engine mounting system that had no backup if something went catastrophically wrong. That engine mounting system would prove to be the DC-10's deadliest weakness. You see, each of the DC-10's massive engines weighed over 8,000 pounds and hung from the wing on a structure called a pylon. This pylon wasn't just a simple bracket, it was a complex assembly of bolts, pins, and mounting points that had to perfectly balance enormous forces during flight. The manufacturer's maintenance manual was crystal clear. When removing engines for service, you must remove the engine and pylon separately. Never, under any circumstances, remove them as a single unit. But in the pressure cooker world of airline economics, where every hour a plane sat in maintenance cost thousands of dollars, American Airlines had developed what they thought was a brilliant shortcut. Instead of the time-consuming process of separating the engine from the pylon, they used a forklift to remove both as a single unit. It saved 8 hours of labor per engine. Multiply that across a fleet of DC-10s, and you're talking about millions in savings. American Airlines wasn't alone. United Airlines and Continental had independently developed the same procedure. After all, if you could save time and money without compromising safety, why wouldn't you? The procedure had been used successfully dozens of times. The forklifts were operated by experienced mechanics. What could possibly go wrong? The answer was hiding in the microscopic world of metal fatigue, in stress fractures invisible to the naked eye. In the perfect storm of circumstances that would align on that Friday afternoon at O'Hare. Because when mechanics used the forklift procedure on Flight 191's left engine 8 weeks earlier, they created a crack in the pylon's rear bulkhead. A crack that grew with every takeoff, every landing, every bit of turbulence, until it was ready to unleash catastrophe. The escalation and near miss. At 3:02 p.m., Captain Walter Lux pushed the throttles forward, and Flight 191 began its takeoff roll down runway 32R. In the cockpit, everything appeared normal. The DC-10 accelerated smoothly, its 3 Pratt & Whitney engines delivering over 120,000 pounds of thrust. First Officer James Dillard called out the speed's V1 rotate at 165 miles per hour. Captain Lux pulled back on the control column, and the massive jet began to lift off. What happened next occurred so fast that the pilots never had time to understand it. Just as the aircraft's nosewheel left the ground, the entire left engine all for tons of IT door away from the wing. But this wasn't a clean separation. As the engine ripped free, it flipped up and over the wing, its momentum carrying it in an arc that would prove devastating. Inside the cockpit, the first indication of trouble was deceptively mild, a slight thud. The aircraft yawed left. Warning lights flickered. Captain Lux and First Officer Dillard had trained for engine failures hundreds of times in simulators. Lose an engine during takeoff. Follow the procedure. Maintain airspeed. Level the wings. Declare an emergency. They'd done it before. They could do it again. But this wasn't just an engine failure. As the engine separated, it had severed hydraulic lines that controlled the left wing's leading edge slats, crucial devices that provided lift at low speeds. Without hydraulic pressure, these slats retracted. Suddenly, the left wing was producing far less lift than the right. The aircraft began an inexorable roll to the left. The truly terrifying part: the pilots had no idea the slats had retracted. The DC-10's warning system, in a fatal design oversight, was powered by the engine that had just departed the aircraft. No engine meant no stall warning, no stick shaker, no alerts that the left wing was about to stop flying. In the cabin, passengers on the left side watched in horror as the engine tumbled away. Flight attendants, trained to maintain calm, gripped their jump seats as the aircraft banked sharply left. Some passengers later reported seeing fuel streaming from the wounded wing, creating a white mist against the clear afternoon sky. Captain Lux fought the controls with everything he had. For 31 seconds after engine separation, he managed to keep the DC-10 airborne through sheer skill and determination. The aircraft climbed to 325 feet, banking left at an increasingly steep angle. Ground witnesses described it as looking like the plane was trying to turn back to the airport. But physics is merciless. At 3:04 p.m., with the left wing now perpendicular to the ground, American Airlines Flight 191 rolled inverted and dove nose first into a trailer park adjacent to the airport. The impact and resulting fireball killed all 271 people aboard and 2 people on the ground, making it the deadliest aviation accident in United States history. Here's where the story takes its most chilling turn. Flight 191 wasn't supposed to crash. Even with a separated engine, the DC-10 was designed to fly. Investigators would later prove, in simulators, that if the slats had remained extended, or if the pilots had known to increase airspeed, the aircraft could have circled back and landed safely. The difference between 273 deaths and a successful emergency landing came down to a hidden cascade of failures that no one had imagined possible. The aftermath and lessons. The investigation that followed revealed a web of systemic failures so profound that it shook the aviation industry to its core. When investigators examined the wreckage, they found the smoking gun, fractures in the pylon's rear bulkhead that showed clear evidence of metal fatigue. These cracks hadn't formed during the crash, they were old, growing over weeks of regular flight operations. But the real shock came when investigators discovered the forklift procedure. At first, American Airlines insisted their maintenance shortcut was safe, even innovative. Then investigators found the maintenance records. Not just 1 or 2 instances, dozens of DC-10s had undergone the same procedure. Worse, when they inspected other aircraft, they found more cracks. Flight 191 wasn't an isolated incident. It was simply the first one where the cracks had grown large enough to cause catastrophic failure. The investigation exposed a culture of normalized deviance that had infected the entire industry. McDonnell Douglas knew the pylon attachment was a weak point, but classified it as fail-safe, assuming other structures would compensate if it failed. They were wrong. The FAA knew airlines were using unapproved maintenance procedures, but looked the other way because no accidents had occurred. They were playing Russian roulette. Airlines knew they were violating manufacturer guidelines, but justified it as innovative efficiency. They were betting lives against dollars. Within days of the crash, the FAA took unprecedented action. They grounded the entire DC-10 fleet. Every DC-10 in American airspace, 138. Aircraft was prohibited from flying until inspections could be completed. It was the first time in history the FAA had grounded an entire aircraft type, and it sent shockwaves through the industry. Airlines lost millions. Passengers panicked. The DC-10's reputation, already shaky, was destroyed. But the grounding revealed something even more terrifying. During inspections, investigators found cracks in pylons across multiple airlines. Continental Airlines had a DC-10 with cracks so severe that investigators calculated it would have failed within days. United Airlines found 6 aircraft with pylon damage. The forklift procedure had created a fleet of time bombs, and Flight 191 was simply the first to detonate. The deeper lesson of Flight 191 went beyond maintenance procedures. It exposed how the aviation industry's pursuit of efficiency had created blind spots in safety culture. When mechanics raised concerns about the forklift procedure, they were told it had been approved by engineering. When engineers questioned it, they were told it was a maintenance issue. When pilots reported unusual vibrations, they were told it was within normal parameters. Everyone assumed someone else was ensuring safety, and in that assumption lay catastrophe. The crash forced a fundamental restructuring of aviation safety philosophy. The FAA mandated new inspection procedures, requiring detailed examinations of critical attachment points. McDonnell Douglas redesigned the pylon attachment system, adding multiple failsafes. Most importantly, the industry adopted a new principle. No single failure, however unlikely, should be able to cause catastrophic loss. This philosophy of redundancy would save countless lives in the decades to come. Conclusion and call to action. Flight 191 did UNT just fall from the sky? It was pulled down by the weight of 1,000 small compromises. Each shortcut, each overlooked warning, each assumption that it's always worked before, added another link to the chain of catastrophe. When that chain finally snapped, it took 273 lives with it, and forever changed how we think about the word safe in aviation. Today, when you board an aircraft, you're safer because of the passengers who died that afternoon in Chicago. Their tragedy forced the aviation industry to confront a brutal truth. Efficiency without safety is just disaster in slow motion. The DC-10 went on to fly safely for decades after modifications, but it never shed the shadow of Flight 191. Every time a mechanic follows proper procedure, every time an inspector refuses to cut corners, every time a pilot trusts their instruments, they honor the memory of those who paid the ultimate price for our hard-won wisdom. The next time you feel your aircraft's engines power up for takeoff, remember this. Somewhere in America right now, pressure to cut costs is meeting pressure to maintain safety. The battle between efficiency and security plays out every day in hangars and boardrooms across the country. Flight 191 proved that when safety loses that battle, we all pay the price, and the bill always comes due when we least expect it. Want to discover another aviation disaster that exposed a terrifying truth about air travel? Watch our video on the Tenerife Airport disaster, the deadliest accident in aviation history that happened without a single mechanical failure. Click here to learn how a perfectly functioning aircraft with experienced crews created a catastrophe that killed 583 people, and why the lessons learned might be the only thing preventing it from happening again.